Folks, now I'm going to bring in a political panel. We've got the great Charlie Hurt, Washington Times opinion editor, Fox News contributor. We also have Gianno Caldwell, Fox News political analyst. Gentlemen, welcome back. Charlie Hurt, inflation up, Bidenomics down. Inflation up, Biden presidential race down. I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm making too much of this, but it is the headline story of the day. Stocks are crashing and all the rest of it, but on all the websites, even the New York Times is running this at the top of their website, saying that it's doing damage to Biden's re-election campaign. What you think?
Oh, I think it's terrible, and you know, the idea that he's going to be able to turn it around in a quick few months seems pretty impossible to me. But you know more about that than I do. You know, we talk about all these other issues a lot. We talk about illegal immigration, the open border. We talk about some of the stuff going on overseas, and obviously a lot of that stuff cuts against Joe Biden. But nothing ever trumps the economy. In an election, nothing ever trumps the economy. Sometimes security can, but security trumps the economy only if the economy is doing okay. If people feel like the economy is bad and people are hurting, and that is what's going on right now. People are paying. Inflation has taken a giant chunk of cash out of people's pockets. It has been a massive tax on everybody, hurting the poorest people the most. Because that's the way a tax like that works. It's devastating and then you had Joe Biden talking about how today that he's speculating on another rate cut before the election. Which I'm not a constitutional scholar, but that seems pretty crazy to have a president predicting something like that in the middle of an election.
Yeah, he's having a moderately terrible day. Gianno, I want to play for you some sound from Obama campaign manager David Axelrod about Bidenomics. Take a listen, please.
I wouldn't go out there and extol the miracle of the Biden economy. It just drives me crazy when he does that. He needs to put himself on the side of working people in their economic fight here.
Gianno, you know, the Obama guys are pretty smart. They whooped us twice, for heaven's sakes. And I think what he's saying is much better. It's more like Bill Clinton, I feel your pain. Joe Biden's saying it's the best economy in the world, and then he gets 3 straight bad inflation numbers, blah, blah, blah. What do you make of this, Gianno? What do you think about what Axelrod said? What do you think about what Biden's saying?
Well, I mean, I do agree that the flipping a switch for this campaign, I think, is going to be incredibly difficult considering the set of circumstances that we had across the country economically. You talk about the Israel-Hamas conflict. You think about immigration. You think about the fact that 15% of the electorate or those who are able to qualify for voting are Latinos, and how Trump is beating Joe Biden by 6%. In that group, African Americans are coming to Donald Trump in a significant enough portion in swing states, whereas he could actually win. Joe Biden is between a rock and a very, very hard place. There's no way for him to get out of this. There's no flipping the switch that I think any of us can predict from during this particular time. I think that Joe Biden right now should be honest with the American people about what the status of the economy truly is, because people are feeling the pain, whether it be at the pump, the grocery store, when they go out to eat, or buying their everyday groceries or whatever that may be. So at this time, the only way you can kind of break through is being honest. Like you said, I feel your pain. But I don't think that he's willing to do that.
No.
And he's not shown that kind of honesty or that heart, that passion that people said he would have when he ran in 2020.
I agree. I mean, I think Axelrod's a smart guy. Fellas, I'd like to talk more, but I'm out of time. Charlie Hurt, Gianno Caldwell. Joe Biden's having a rough day. And I don't know what's going to change between now and November, but we will see.